This podcast is brought to you by Deepbridge Capital LLP. Deepbridge is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Please note that investments discussed are both illiquid and high risk and won't be suitable for all investors and should be considered as part of a diversified portfolio. The content of this podcast should not be construed as financial or taxation advice. We recommend investors seek appropriate professional financial advice. Any views expressed may no longer be current and may have already been acted upon. Welcome to this Deepbridge Discovery Podcast. My name's Andrew Aldridge. I'm partner and head of marketing at Deepbridge Capital. The aim of these podcasts is to give you an insight into how Deepbridge works, the companies we invest in, and to bring those investments to life. I'm delighted today to be joined by Clemens Wangerin, who is CEO of vTime. vTime is a company within Deepbridge Technology Growth EIS. It produces virtual reality and augmented reality software and is based in Liverpool in the northwest of England. So Clemens, thank you very much for joining us today. First and foremost, could you just briefly introduce yourself and talk us through vTime, the journey, the team around you, and kind of where vTime came from?
Sure, yeah, it'd be a pleasure. So my name is Clemens Wangerin. I'm the CEO of vTime. Been in the games and digital and tech industry for the last 25 plus years or so, and been with vTime since its formation. We're coming up to almost our 10-year anniversary, so it's been quite a journey already.
Absolutely.
And vTime is a company that really focuses on changing and improving how people can communicate with each other and connect with the world around them through immersive technologies and enabling technologies like 5G, virtual reality, machine learning, AI, and so all of those things are a big part of what we sort of have in our arsenal, if you like.
Sure.
The vTime journey started when our founder, Martin Kenwright, who's a successful creative entrepreneur. He's been in the games industry since the late 80s, and he's had successful exits previously. He sold his last game development studio to Sony PlayStation back in 2007. When he decided he wanted to come back into the industry, so he sold his last business. He took some time out, and then he thought, there's still so much great opportunity in the sector. I want to come back, and he was in the sort of position where he had, he was independently wealthy because of his success, and he was in a position to, put together the funding to effectively start vTime and set us on our way and
bring the team together, I guess. I mean, that's one of the core things to start with, wasn't it?
Well, it's really, we were quite a different sort of startup as a result of that, because we were able to, we had a sort of quite a clear runway, which is unusual for startups, which was a sort of significant length of time. We were able to attract quite a bit of talent from the sort of city of Liverpool and the surrounding area, and we were able to sort of scale up from an operational point of view quite quickly, and that also meant we were able to get productive quite quickly. And I think that element is something that vTime is sort of really retained, is that element of productivity. So even though we developed tech for something that is now referred to as the Metaverse, and which is a sort of really long-term kind of destination, if you like, what we understand is that in order to get to this future, you need stepping stones, and for us, those stepping stones represent products that we release ourselves, or relationships that we build with commercial partners, and projects that we deliver. So we're not a research company where we just sort of spend 10 years and sort of like in a lab. We're creating technologies and innovations. But we're also sort of completing the loop by actually putting them into people's hands and seeing how they're being used, and how that's different to how people use software, interact with software today, or use communication today.
And I guess it's an ever-changing kind of world that you're based in. The whole world is changing regularly. So I guess having those products come to market gives you kind of the research in itself to be able to dictate how you develop things further. Is that right?
It's right. Yeah, it's invaluable to have real world user data in this space, and to really understand what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of it, when we first started out, and when sort of VR first started becoming a proper consumer proposition, nobody really knew, how these things were going to be used, and what the reception was going to be like. So it's been very, very useful to have these insights, and I think it's been a critical part of what's allowing us to map away towards this future that we're aiming for.
And you mentioned the team and the kind of skills you had to bring in. I mean, again, you mentioned you're based in Liverpool. Have you always found this kind of if you like, a hotbed of talent in the area? Do you find it difficult to attract talent, or kind of what does that mean in terms of where you're based and who you can attract?
Yeah, so I think what's important to remember is that the northwest of England is very much one of the maybe 2 or 3 cradles of the video game industry in the UK. So going all the way back to the early 80s, you had companies here already doing games for the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64, and going all the way, that far back. And then, later on in the sort of 80s and 90s, there was a bit of an explosion of bigger companies sort of setting up in the city, not just in Liverpool, but also in Manchester. So you had a bit of a sort of axis going on. And that's really, over the last sort of 30 years, led to, a very, I would say, vibrant, creative and digital sector. Which is sort of, I guess, the umbrella term that we would fall under. And I think in the city of Liverpool alone, there's about 1,500 people working in the industry. And we've seen, massive growth in that time from not just ourselves in terms of headcount, but also some of our sort of other studios that are in the area. And talent attraction is, of course, a challenge for any business that wants to grow. But I think what it really does is it puts the owners on the business to really be attractive to the best talent, first of all, but also to really invest the time and effort into the recruitment process. And we're already, I think, the days where you can just put a job ad out and wait for the CVs to start rolling in.
It doesn't work that way anymore.
They're almost gone. They're certainly done in the sectors that I'm aware of, where there is a greater appetite for talent than is maybe available. And so what that means is, your offering needs to be really good, and you need to be, very much, especially if you're attracting younger people, you need to be very much in tune with, what they're looking for. And some of that extends to, how ethical is the business. Absolutely. And, what sort of products does it develop? And, things that are very different for the younger workforce, for example, than they are for maybe, people who are, more in the sort of middle or later stages of their careers today.
Yeah. It's not just about the pension package. It's much wider.
I mean, it really is. It's about the whole thing. Because what do you offer for mental health? Yeah. What do you do outside of work? And what do you do for diversity? What do you do for inclusion? These are all things that, as a business, you really, really need to spend time understanding what they mean, because you very quickly otherwise found out, that you're only paying lip service. Yep. And so, some companies invest in talent, recruiters, people who are literally just have a job of doing that on a permanent basis, because it is a bit like fundraising. It is a full-time job.
Absolutely.
Recruitment. So
it is. And I think, I guess it helps that, as you said, that where you're based, you've got that access of talent across the Northwest. So you've got that pool there. It's not like you're having to re-educate people into a new kind of...
And it really helps. Liverpool's got 3 great universities, and we've got great relationships with all of those. And then the wider sort of Northwest has got some really, really great universities. And of course, that sort of computer science and fine art degrees and all the sort of associated degrees that we're looking for are very, very strong in the region. And then also you have, of course, sort of the wider country, the wider UK.
So kind of going
to draw from.
Absolutely. So kind of going beyond that, there's obviously been massive changes we've alluded to in the sector that you work in over the last 10 years since you founded the company. How has the company evolved? I mean, you mentioned gaming before. I mean, your software isn't specifically for gaming, but there's licensing opportunities there, etc. I mean, how has vTime evolved over the period that you've been running? Yeah,
so I think we've always been pretty focused on the same thing, which is sort of we know this point in the future that we're driving towards. What's probably changed the most is what stepping stones we decide we're gonna develop and we're gonna need in order to get us there, and ultimately what hardware might be needed in order to sort of help us achieve that. So
facilitate your software,
Sorry?
To facilitate your software effectively.
Yeah, that's right. Right. So whether it's wearable glasses, or whether it's 5G, like I mentioned before, or whether it's virtual reality headsets, or even still 2D displays. So I think from that point of view, it's all about it. Yeah.
And I guess kind of, during that time, I know you've kind of worked with different types of organizations and different kind of sectors. I mean, kind of, who's your kind of, what kind of organizations do you work with?
Right. So I think we work with quite a few. Not many of them are in the public domain. So I'm just going to have a little think about which ones are in the public domain. But I think before I get into the detail, I think what maybe helps understand is that the areas or the sort of sectors outside of gaming where we found the most relevant for our technologies and for the projects that we develop and the products that we've created is communication. Is a clear one. So we've got some great relationships with several mobile network operators, Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile being one of them, Orange being another one of them. And we've previously done work with Vodafone. So there's a very high match between what we're doing and how those kind of companies are seeing the future and the evolution of the smartphone and communication. Then also we're seeing a big overlap in sport, and particularly with regards to fan engagement, and again, particularly with regards to younger people, because I think what we're seeing across the board, whether it's football or any other kind of club-based sport, is that the demographic, the younger the demographic, the different they are in terms of how they engage with a football club. So I think that the days, generally speaking, the days of having a sort of lifelong fan that was sort of indoctrinated by their dad being taken to their first match, and from that point on, there are forever a red or blue or whatever color you want to sort of attach to that. They're very few and far between. I'm not saying they don't exist anymore, but young people consume and interface and interact with sport in a very different way. They're less likely maybe to watch a full 90 minutes of a game. They want to see the highlights only. They want to have something a lot more personalized rather than a sort of catch-all match day program that appeals to everybody that goes to the game. They want something that feels a bit more tailored to them. And a lot of these things are really only achievable through technology or through a digital approach. And I think, again, from our point of view, we've built up a great amount of knowledge in what is it about this Gen Z audience, this demographic, and how can we really help our partners? Like we've done some work with City Football Group, for example. How can we help them reach their fans, especially the fans that are never, ever going to set foot into a stadium? I was
going to say they're global sports these days, aren't they? So
almost all sports are global to various degrees. But I mean, the Premier League has got massive global appeal, and a lot of their fan base is very, very unlikely to ever be able to come to the Etihad and experience a game. So how can you use our technologies to achieve that? How can you give people a sense of what the club is like, what the stadium feels like? And I think we've got a lot of great things that we've done with CFG in that space, and we're doing other great things, and are always looking for other partners in that space as well. And then the final one, just briefly, which has sort of taken a bit of a backseat because of the pandemic, was tourism. So tourism, we've got some really amazing and perfect technologies that are really elevating how a visitor experience can work when people do city breaks or when people visit events. And so we're looking forward to really sort of picking it up again, because during the pandemic and lockdowns, of course,
there was little point, I guess, to some degree.
There was very little point in that, but we've seen we've got some great conversations going on in the UK, in Europe, and in the US around that, and a lot of that is really because we've developed our technology now in a way where it works on your phone without having to download an application. So it really works with these sort of, you can call them apps light. Apple and Google call them various things, but it's basically functionality embedded in everybody's phone, where just by scanning a QR code, you are able to consume a piece of digital content.
And engage as well, I guess, to a degree.
Yeah, and engagement, and that content in our case is an avatar that is driven by AI, that has a script that you've written in text, but that is spoken through machine learning, turned into voice, is animated independently depending on the text that you put in, and can be updated in real time, however many times you like. So we've got some really, really promising conversations in Asia at the moment, but also here in the UK, around how that might be leveraged and how that can really, again, help save money, because you're no longer having to print, text-based information which nobody really wants to read. And again, younger people in particular, if they want to walk around somewhere, they don't really want to go up and like read a plaque. They want something more dynamic. They want something more immediate. And so I think we're in a really good position now as we're coming out of the pandemic and travel restrictions are lifted, and there is a sort of now a market opening up where visitor attractions, everybody's looking for something new now.
There's a hunger to travel as well. You've got a kind of captive audience there, I guess.
I think people have seen enough travel programs. I think they're ready to do the traveling themselves again. So yeah, we're looking forward to sort of really riding that wave, if you like, and we're quite promising for us.
So what, I guess, kind of looking at kind of how the company's evolved, what are the particular highlights for you over the kind of the last few years of how the company's progressed, or particular wins, or something where you've seen something really work, or kind of what are those highlights?
Sure. So I think the first highlight was really the product that we released initially, which is called vTime XR. That's still available today, and it's done phenomenally well since it's launched back in 2015. It's had 1.3 million downloads now. It's available in 190 countries around the world, and has thousands of users every month using it. And they're mainly using it for communication, but the reason why it was a real milestone for us is because it was the first sort of VR product that we launched on the Samsung Gear VR, and it really took a lot of sort of industry players, if you like, by surprise, and created a lot of interest. So there was a real that sort of 2016 period also gave us a cool vendor award from Gartner, and other companies previously that won them, like sort of Dropbox and Instagram. So we felt really honored to be recognized like that. And I think the next step after that was really, how do we make sure that we're not just a one-trick pony? How do we make sure that our technology really continues to work on as many devices on many systems as possible, and not just in virtual reality, but also in augmented reality, and also on 2D screens, because today 2D screens are still, that's what we're looking at here right now. That's what you're sort of using to interact with your phone. And that's, of course, not the future, but it is still very important to sort of, you still want to reach people today. You don't want to be just, really on the fringes of where consumers are. You want to be somewhere in the, where you can still reach your audience as well. So we've invested. I think that the second thing I'm really proud with is how much we invested into, our technology and our technology offering, to make sure we're able to achieve what we want to achieve, and that was really a good couple of years we had to spend on that, and we're now in an incredibly strong position as the market has sort of almost changed gear a little bit towards the back end of last year, when the Metaverse became a thing all of a sudden, although we've been aware of that term for a long time, and in some ways virtual worlds is effectively just another way of describing a metaverse. Those have existed in gaming for a good 10-15 years. So that what we're incredibly excited about now is that ability to leverage all of that at a point when it looks like the market is just changing gears, and we're seeing things like 5G finally in market, still being rolled out, and there's still a long way to go before that becomes fully established and stuff, but it's finally feels like it's starting to happen, and we're seeing the sort of hardware, the end user side of things also being successful and appealing, and from a cost point of view, attainable by.
It's
by
becoming
users.
mainstream, I guess. I think that's the key thing. And
it's starting to, It's certainly I would say the early majority is that classic sort of like, the sort of early adopters. Absolutely. And then I think we're in that early majority now. I think we've jumped that gap. There's always that gap between, whether something really moves from early adopters into the sort of mainstream. But I think what we're certainly seeing, there is a lot of very large players investing huge amounts into the ecosystem, into the infrastructure, into all the things that we will need as a sort of much smaller player, but still able to kind of do our thing. And so that's incredibly encouraging to see from the likes of Meta and Qualcomm, and some really big names. Apple, of course, still to enter the market, which is. And
I guess Facebook changing their name to Meta was kind of a game changer for the whole metaverse concept in terms of public awareness and public engagement in that sense. So that must have been a landmark moment, if you like.
It just makes things easier. I mean, in some way, right? Because it just it really sort of cuts straight through a lot of things. And in a lot of ways, that's not dissimilar to what happened when Facebook bought Oculus and sort of started creating this VR market in the first place, right? And sort of spent $2 billion on it at the time or something like that. And everybody was like, whoa, okay. And then they just like, well, I guess Facebook is now a VR company. But, that was really the start of that. And of course, it's not just about VR, it's about these sort of immersive technologies, and eventually we'll have contact lenses and all the rest of it. But it does make things easier. And of course, people sort of pay attention when a multi-billion large international corporate takes a step like that. So for us, that's certainly been helpful, let's say, at least.
So go on then. The important question for lay people such as myself: can you explain what a metaverse is?
Well, I think that there is no fixed definition. I think that's the main thing to remember. And I think when I sort of before we got on, I thought, what is officially, when you look it up, what does it say? And I mean, on the internet, it calls it an immersive interactive environment. I mean, people often compare it to the holodeck on Star Trek. And, or the Matrix, right? The sort of you plug in and you go. I think those are good to give you a sort of like future vision of stuff. But I think what's important to remember is the metaverse ultimately will be a deeper, richer, more meaningful version of our digital life today. If you already think how much time we're spending online, using our devices, browsing the internet, right? These are all things that can be enhanced just in the same way that we're already enhancing communication by the addition of immersive technologies or 3D graphics. Now, the thing that nobody is really sort of able to outline in detail is like, well, how is that exactly going to work? And I think that's the period that we're in now is at the moment it can still be achieved in various different ways, and there's no. You're talking about individual walled gardens, if anything. So people often give Fortnite as an experience, or Roblox. Those are probably today's examples of what it means to have a metaverse, right? These sort of connected virtual worlds that you can jump around with. And Fortnite hosts, concerts, right? So people don't even just play there anymore. They go there to have a social experience. I think that the social component is a key aspect. That's something we're really, really strong in. So the ability to bring users together and connect them with each other so that they can communicate and do things together in this virtual space. But what we're still seeing coming in that's only really at the fringes are technologies like Web3, NFTs, crypto, decentralized organizations, right? There's a whole slew of things that are very, very much on the fringes right now. And if you think of the traditional Gartner curve, they're very much at the sort of beginning, but they are all going to come blockchain, all of those elements are going to come and find a place where, we'll hopefully have something in the future, which is the next version of the web that's going to be, offer a really deep and rich experience if you want it, but probably still give you a really quick and simple way if you just need to be on a 2D screen. And I think it ultimately will provide, like I said, just a much deeper, richer, and meaningful way of going online effectively.
So somebody explained it, or tried to explain it to me fairly recently, kind of as a marketeer and things myself. They were talking about saying, well, yeah, if you go back 20 years or 10 years, even in some cases, advertising was all about broadcast. It was just about speaking out and telling what your product did. And now advertising and marketing is very much about engagement and kind of immersing and kind of speaking to customers, etc., and getting that feedback. And they were trying to explain that the kind of, the web was that very much on the internet, was kind of online, was the web was broadcast. You go online, you go and find a website and it tells you what you need to find. Whereas the metaverse is all about engagement and actually people building things together and working together within an online environment. Is that kind of is that fair? Is that...
I think that's, at the moment, really, there is no fixed definition, but I think those are all very, very valid points. The important thing is for us, all of those things play to our strength.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as a company. So where avatars are going to play a big role in that. 3D worlds are going to play a big role in that. Network connectivity is going to play a massive role in that. Machine learning, AI, all of the things that we're already deploying now to help us automate a lot of processes to make dealing with customers different and having avatars that are driven by AI that you can have a conversation with in a normal language, and they will respond and they will understand what you're saying, and will be able to sort of help you in a much more personalized way than it's just possible through a little chatbot text window today.
Absolutely. I remember speaking to you a few years ago when you were talking to me about how, once 5G starts to get rolled out and all these kind of things, that's kind of a great step forward for what you're trying to achieve, etc. And as you just alluded to, we're kind of starting to get to that position now where 5G is being rolled out, or probably not as quick as you'd like. But what are your hopes, objectives, kind of the next 12 months, 3 years, etc.? Kind of what does the future look like for vTime?
Yeah. I think the future for us in the near term is we are hard at work at the next iteration of our product, which is going to represent all the sort of culmination of R&D and development and know-how we've accumulated over the pandemic in the last year or so, to really set us up in a way where we can be a major player in that metaverse space. We've been cultivating some really strong relationships with commercial partners. So our focus is on bringing those to fruition over the next 12 months, so that we're giving ourselves a really good platform to then push into. We always think about sort of 2024, 25 as a bit of a sweep spot where the business should be in a really strong position to decide whether it's in a position to raise more capital to then go another 5 years or 10 years and actually become, the next Epic or the next, insert big successful company name here, or whether that will be a point where we might, think, okay, we need a really big strategic partner in order to really achieve what it is that we want to achieve. And from our point of view, a lot of those are based on relationships, of course, that we're building today, and the sort of foundation that we're building today. So a lot of focus. Our focus will always be R&D is a massive part of what we do. We're a knowledge-based business. We're always pushing the envelope in terms of what's possible. Innovation is part of our DNA. If we weren't trailblazers, it would be really, really difficult for us to do a good job, because we're so focused on that. So I think from our point of view, it's getting the next product out into the door, getting our partners, the likes of Meta and PlayStation and other hardware vendors, excited about that, getting them to support it, and of course looking at how we can monetize that, how can we generate revenue from that, and continue pushing into that space. And we think all of those areas before, and maybe some other sort of areas like online shopping and stuff, they're all really ripe for leveraging our technologies, and we think there is incredible growth potential.
And I think from our investors' perspectives, we often get asked by advisors and investors kind of what our exit opportunity is going to look like for vTime in the kind of the medium term. And you've obviously mentioned about some of the strategic partners you're working with, and kind of choices in the next few years about working with them or kind of going for a large fundraising round kind of to take you to the next level yourselves. Those are all opportunities for investors. I think that's the key thing from us, and which gets us excited, is that the opportunities avail themselves to vTime, and in the future for our investors is exciting times.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's we want people to notice what we're doing. We're constantly banging the drum about what it is that we're doing. One of the reasons why we're putting products out is to get that extra visibility, and I think that's all part and parcel that drives into that.
Absolutely. So I appreciate your time today, Clemens. We always like our listeners or our viewers just to kind of get a feel of the people behind our companies as well. So can you just kind of share with us kind of what you do away from the desk and away from the screen?
What I do away from the screen. Okay. So I have 2 young kids, so that's a big
takes up most of your time.
Big part, a big part of that answer. So I try and spend as much time with them as I can. On a personal level, I'm big into walking, so I do a lot of walking, and that's sort of way of just recharging batteries and being out in nature and all the rest of it. When you deal with tech and technology as much
when you're working in an alternative world, it's got to get out into the real world, I guess.
And I never have anything, like I have no headphones on, then I literally just try and unplug. So I think it's a really important part to have that sort of balance. And then for fun, I love Lego. I'm a big Lego. I love building Lego sets. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you can see me posting some videos of time-lapse videos of stuff I've done. And I'm a big fan of Formula One, and that's partly because I made Formula One games when I was at Sony for 10 years, and I've retained that fan relationship with it. So that's just another sort of hobby, if you can call it.
I was going to say, exciting times at the moment then. So
it's very, very interesting. I'm sort of thinking about maybe going to the Las Vegas Grand Prix that's on the calendar for next year. So that would be the ultimate boys' weekend away if my wife would let me.
But I was going to say I'll book into that as well. I'll come with you, Clemens. That's
perfect.
So the question we ask all of our guests on our podcast is about the Deepbridge dinner party. If you could invite any 3 people to join you for dinner, excluding family, so anybody dead or alive, who would you invite and why?
Okay. Well, I'll just stick with the Formula One theme. It would definitely be Michael Schumacher. So, Michael Schumacher was, the king of Formula One when I was making the F1 games. Sure. And of course, he was the first German to really, I'm originally from Germany. So, he was the first German to really, win a title. So I would love to have Michael Schumacher there. It was somebody who really redefined what it meant to be a Formula One driver, and took fitness and nutrition and all those things to a completely different level, next level.
To perform at that high level over such a consistent long time as well.
Yeah, I mean, completely. And we've seen Hamilton obviously achieving a similar level now, but he's still around. He's going to be too busy. He's still racing, right? Michael Schumacher is no longer active as a driver, so I would say Michael Schumacher. And then I would probably say someone from music. Let's say Mitch Yore. So I'm a closet Ultravox fan, if you can say that. But I've loved their music, and I think Mitch Yore would be somebody who's been in the music industry for a long time. Must have met a lot of interesting people. Must have a lot of interesting.
Well, just with Band-Aid and things like that he was involved in. That must have been the people he brought.
Exactly. So I think I would pick Mitch Yore, and then the third one. That's a tricky one. Who will I pick as a third one? Yeah, maybe somebody from the games industry, someone like Sid Meier. Sid Meier who did the Civilization series. So again, just somebody who's really been sort of focused on that single genre and has really become an expert in their field. And I would just love to know like what goes into producing a game like that, and what it feels like to give birth to a whole sort of genre of strategy games. And
absolutely. That was right at the beginning.
That's not incredibly diverse. I feel really bad now because they're all white men. So I think if I think again, I might come up with a different lineup. But that's the one for now.
Well, we'll catch up with you on a future podcast in a few months, and you can think again then. But that's good. Excellent. Well, Clemens, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and we look forward to catching up with you soon.
Great, thanks, Andrew.
Thank you for joining us. If you have any queries or any topics you'd like covering in any future podcasts, then please email us at discovery@deepbridgecapital.com. This podcast was brought to you by Deepbridge Capital LLP. Deepbridge is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Please note that investments discussed are both illiquid and high risk and won't be suitable for all investors and should be considered as part of a diversified portfolio. The content of this podcast should not be construed as financial or taxation advice. We recommend investors seek appropriate professional financial advice. Any views expressed may no longer be current and may have already been acted upon.